As promised, the Illuminati offer a carved-up turkey for Thanksgiving, while world leaders talk gas in Paris. December 1, 2015. Benjamin Fulford.net. The Illuminati, through their Grand Master Alexander Romanov, promised a surprise for Thanksgiving this year and even gave us a hint of what it would be by showing a map of Turkey on his website. Now Pentagon sources are saying that Turkey is going to pay for its funding of ISIS and its aggression in the Middle East by having large areas of its territory confiscated. The same is going to happen to Israel, both Illuminati and Pentagon sources say. Saudi Arabia, for its part, will cease to exist as a Saudi family private property playground, they say. This takedown of the Khazarian Mafia is happening as world leaders gather in Paris to talk about using global warming pseudoscience to promote a very real economic campaign to stop environmental destruction and end reliance on fossil fuels. More about that later. For now, the main action is concentrated on Turkey, where Germany has joined France, Russia, Iran, Egypt, and the Pentagon in fighting against the Turkish, Israeli, Saudi, and Khazarian mercenary army known as ISIS. The Pentagon prepared the ground for this campaign months ago by withdrawing all Patriot missile defenses from Turkey and Israel. This paved the way for the Russian Air Force to set up a no-fly zone throughout the Middle East, including Israel, and now most of soon-to-be former NATO ally Turkey, Pentagon sources say. Turkey is expected to imminently lose territory on several different fronts, Pentagon and Russian sources say. France, the former colonial master of Syria, is supporting a Syrian demand that Turkey return the Arabic-majority province of Hatay. Wikipedia.org, that was taken from them in 1937. Meanwhile, the Russians and the Pentagon are now also supporting removing another huge chunk of Turkey to create a Kurdish state, the sources say. Finally, the nation of Armenia may also be about to get some historical payback, they say. Russian troops have poured into Armenia for the purpose of confiscating chunks land in the northeast Turkey near the Armenian border and returning them to Armenia, Pentagon and Russian sources say. The Russians have already installed anti-aircraft batteries in Armenia and created a no-fly zone in preparation for the seizure of this territory, they say. As a Pentagon official put it, quote, "It looks like Putin will be carving up a turkey for Christmas." The question, of course, is why did Turkish President Recep Erdogan trigger this massive attack on his country by shooting down a Russian bomber? The best guess is that Erdogan fell into a clever trap. Somebody must have told him that if he ordered the downing of a Russian bomber, then NATO would come to his rescue and support his bid to recreate the Ottoman Empire. The other thing that several sources are saying is that Erdogan, along with Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, the Bush-Clinton crime family, and the Saudi royal family are all members of the Khazarian Mafia who believe it is their destiny to create a new world order. They are all descendants of the ancient Satan-worshipping Hyksos tribe of human slavers, and their NWO plan was to kill 90% of humanity and enslave the rest. Instead, the NWO is blowing up in their faces. An analysis of Middle Eastern oil trade connected to ISIS made it very clear that oil was being stolen from Iraq and Syria by mercenary armies financed by Saudi Arabia and other Gulf monarchies. Furthermore, the stolen oil was all being sold by either Turkey or Israel. Not only that, but multiple media reports confirm this weekly's assertions the European Rothschild family, another Khazarian satanic bloodline, have been deeply involved in massive oil theft. The Illuminati and the Pentagon sources say that many of the Rothschilds, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the Erdogan family are now, quote, high-value targets. According to Source.fr, an information/disinformation site set up by U.S. Naval Intelligence, Erdogan's son Bilal is now on the run because he raped, tortured, and murdered British and American female journalists who were reporting on Turkey's support of ISIS. In this case, the report has a strong ring of truth to it. WhatDoesItMean.com. In any case, once Turkey is finished with, the Russians and Syrians are expected to carry out a joint military campaign to wrest the Golan Heights from Israel. Following that, Israel will be forced to make a permanent peace with its neighbors in exchange for the return of stolen land. Saudi Arabia is also being increasingly exposed as one of the most tyrannical regimes on the planet. The latest example of what sort of regime this is can be seen in reports that a Sri Lankan woman is about to be stoned to death by a mob as punishment for adultery. dailymail.co.uk. Inside the U.S. as well, a purge of the Khazarian mafia is continuing. Jeb Bush, for example, is now widely reviled as part of the traitorous gangster family that was complicit in 9/11 and countless other crimes. As a result, he has virtually vanished from the corporate media where, until recently, he was talked about as if he were an anointed presidential candidate. Neocon traitor John McCain, for his part, is showing signs of mental instability, CIA sources say. The rest of the Khazarian mob in the U.S. is also terrified because the sources of their power, the Federal Reserve Board and the corporate governments of the United States, are bankrupt. Major European allies like France, Germany, Italy, England, Switzerland, etc. have already abandoned them. Now, a Canadian group is trying to negotiate a friendly takeover bid of the United States corporate government. The Canadians are offering good government, friendly foreign policy, and a fair economic playing field for all Americans if their bid succeeds. The Pentagon, the Chinese, the Europeans, and others have shown an initial positive reaction when asked to support this bid. This is all very preliminary, though, sources close to the bid offer say. In Japan as well, signs are that the Khazarian mob rule is going to finally be taken down. Members of the Japan Independence Party and this writer showed up at a CSIS conference in Tokyo, where Khazarian Kabbalist mass murderers Richard Armitage, Michael Green, and Kurt Campbell were giving lectures. These people were forced to scuttle away from their conference, pursued by protesters. After this, Japan Independence Party head Richard Koshimizu and this writer went to the nearby Marunouchi police station to present evidence the above individuals were criminals. The Japanese police showed an interest in making prosecutions, but requested more evidence, which is being provided. A photograph of some of the protesters and the banners they showed to these criminals is below. The Illuminati promised their support for Japan and will be presenting, in person, an ultimatum to key Khazarian agents and proxies there to hand over control of the process of creating and distributing Japanese yen to the Japanese people. Representatives of the Japanese underworld attending the protest promised they would support nationalizing the Khazarian-controlled Bank of Japan. Michael Green, head of Mossad Japan, is now a primary target, they said. Certain senior Japanese oligarchs are also going to be given discreet warnings to stop cooperating with the Khazarian mob or else face, quote, terminal consequences. Meanwhile, in Europe, the moderate faction of the Cabal that has been running the West has gathered over 140 world leaders in Paris for 2 weeks to try to force them to come up with a solution to, quote, global warming. And while it is unfortunate these people feel the need to lie about global warming to justify their plans, they nonetheless are trying to come up with a way to force corporations to pay for any ecosystems they destroy. They are also hoping to come up with a way to make it profitable to rebuild or create new forest and nature preserves. It is a sign the old world order is realizing how much damage their politico-economic systems have done to the planet. It may be too little too late, but at least it shows they are finally waking up to the enormous harm they have done. Finally, in another bit of good news, human trials have begun on the first of what is expected to be many anti-aging drugs to become available. Clinical evidence shows this particular drug, metformin, will allow people to live healthy lives past the age of 120. nzherald.co.nz. Also, Chinese researchers have finally forced a debate on whether and when to begin allowing humans to edit and improve their own genes. For now, the debate centers on removing genes for nasty inherited diseases. However, it will not be long before some people go ahead and get infrared seeing eyes, super muscles, and other powers already available with existing gene technology. TheGuardian.com. The Chinese are already going ahead with this technology by allowing couples to choose the best possible genes from their own gene pool for their children. dailymail.co.uk. Either the West will have to end the ban on gene improvement for their own people, or else watch as Westerners become obsolete genetic relics. The Khazarian mob's attempt to keep our lives brutish and short, so that we do not live long enough to wake up, are coming to an end.